Hey guys, today I'm cooking with Carby. We're making Thai chicken bites. I can't even count how many times I've been driving to Boston Pizza. I get there, I pull out the menu, I start looking at it, pretending like I actually don't already know from the second I left my house, got into the car and thought about it the whole way over, that I was just gonna order Thai chicken bites. They are so delicious. They have that sweet, crunchy, chewy, tasty texture. And even if you don't know what Boston Pizza is, or they don't have those where you're from, I'm sure you've been to a restaurant where they have some sort of Thai chicken bites on the menu. Kind of like the fancied up or prettied up version of chicken tendies, right? Can't go wrong. Okay, let's get started.
First up is the chicken. I've got 3 pieces of boneless, skinless chicken breast here, which I'm cutting into strips that are no more than about 1 centimeter wide. I want them to be bite-sized, obviously. If any of the pieces are a little bit too thick, you can easily butterfly them in half like this before cutting into strips to ensure that it's all going to cook at the same speed. Set that to the side, and then we're going to start on our dry breading. I've got 1 cup of all-purpose flour, to which I'm adding 1 cup of potato starch. If you don't have any potato starch, you could substitute cornstarch or tapioca starch here. Then we are adding in 1 tablespoon each of onion powder, garlic powder, and cayenne hot chili powder, and then a couple of teaspoons worth of fresh ground black pepper. This breading is going to give a lot of additional flavor to our chicken, so we want to make sure it's all evenly incorporated by giving it a quick mix here, and then we'll get started on our wet batter. Into a bowl goes 2 large whole eggs and 4 tablespoons of milk. Make sure you mix these together well. We don't want any lumps left from the egg yolks before we start our dredging process. Thanks, Hal. But before we dredge our chicken, we need to do 2 things. First, I'm preheating a Dutch oven full of canola oil. I've got about 2 inches deep of oil in here for our frying, and I'm gonna turn on my rice cooker. I've got 2 cups of jasmine rice going, as this is gonna be the bed of my dish. Back to our battle station, the process is going to be as follows. Dry it on paper towel, then put it into our dry, then into the wet, then back into the dry, then we're all good and ready to fry. Drying the chicken on the paper towel before breading is important because it's going to help to ensure that our batter adheres nicely to our chicken and we don't end up with an air pocket between the fried outer coating and the chicken itself. I'm going to work in batches of about 6 or 7 pieces of chicken at a time, so the first batch goes from the paper towel into the dry mixture, and then I'm preloading my next batch of chicken onto the paper towel, covering the first batch loosely in our dry mixture. First, I'm just moving it around, ensuring it's all coated. Then I'm gonna pick up each piece and squeeze it in my hand to press that dry mixture onto the chicken before transferring it into our wet dredge. Trying my best to follow the rule of wet hand, dry hand, so I don't end up with just a clumped mess on both of my hands. After I have all of the pieces of chicken transferred into the wet dredge, I'm using a fork to just loosely knock them around, make sure they're covered in the wet batter before transferring back into the dry mixture. Once back in the dry mixture, I'm first, again, loosely covering them with flour just to kind of have something sticking to all of the wet parts before then picking up and squeezing everything together. You should start to see some flaky clumps appearing on the outside of the chicken. Unlike the first time it was in the dry batter, this is what's going to create that nice, crunchy, crispy crust after we deep fry. Once we have finished breading all of the chicken, we're moving over to the stove where our oil should have come up to around 350 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as we start to layer in our chicken, I'm turning up the temperature on my stove to account for the cold chicken going in, and I'm only going to put in about half of the chicken, 1 single layer. We don't want it to all stick together. These are going to fry for about 5 or 6 minutes until they just start to be a pale golden color. While we wait for that, let's talk about the sauce. I'm using just a regular bottled version of sweet chili chicken sauce. You can see by the ingredients list, it's a pretty simple sauce. It's definitely one of those things that it's not super hard to make, but the effort versus buying this gigantic bottle for like $2 at the grocery store, I don't know, usually I end up just using the bottled version. The only time you should disturb your chicken while it's frying is to ensure it's not sticking to each other or the bottom of the pan. After 5 minutes, I'm removing these and we see a nice golden color appearing, and then I'm gonna throw my second batch in, again, another 5 or 6 minutes, and while we wait this time, we're gonna prepare our crispy wontons. So these are just square wonton wrappers. Dumpling wrappers would work fine too, and I'm cutting them into thin 1 centimeter wide strips. They're kind of flour dusted, so they're not really gonna stick to each other, so set them aside and remove that second batch of chicken. But we aren't quite done yet. We're going to let them come down in temperature a little bit and let the oil come up in temperature before giving them a quick second fry to lock in that crispiness. While we wait, I'm going to slice some green onions to be served on the side with our chicken, and I'm going to cut one piece lengthwise and cut into thin little ribbon pieces as a little decoration for on top. Back to the stove, my oil is coming up closer to 375 degrees this time, and I'm going to throw in all of the chicken, assuming there's enough oil to cover it all. As soon as all of the chicken's in, I'm going to empty a large portion of that bottle of sauce into a pan over medium-high heat, bringing it up to a point that it just starts to bubble. As soon as it reaches this point, we can transfer our chicken straight from the oil into the sauce, which was at most maybe 90 seconds. Give everything a toss to ensure all of our pieces of chicken are covered in this nice sticky sauce. And then by this point, my rice has finished cooking, so I'm removing them straight from the pan onto my bed of rice. As soon as we've done that, the last step of frying is to throw our wonton strips in. You'll see super quickly they start to puff up, and it's only gonna be in here for 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds before they start to get this golden color. As soon as they're crispy to touch, we can remove them and we can plate up the rest of our dish. Let's take a second to admire.
Now that we have everything plated, I put the chicken on top of a nice bed of jasmine rice. I included some chopped green onions from earlier, the crispy wontons, because those are a heck of a lot better than the dry ramen or Ichiban chow mein noodles that they usually come with. So this is an upgrade here for sure. Let's give everything a try. That double fry is where it's at. That double fry makes sure that everything is nice and crispy. Heating up the sauce in the skillet to put it on rather than just dumping it on top helps to make everything nice and sticky and adhere to the chicken beautifully. Let's go one more bite of this. You can hear the crunch from that crispy wonton. A little bit of everything together. Hits that level of nostalgia, exactly what we're looking for, and I'd say it's even better. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you learned something. Hope you give this recipe a try yourselves at home, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.